Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We are here to take your scattered sources, your articles, your research notes, your half-formed ideas, and forge them into the sharpest knowledge possible. And today we are tackling a time of year that is just an absolute contradiction, the year-end paradox.
It truly is a fascinating pressure cooker, isn't it? As professionals, we often experience this peak efficiency in November, maybe early December. That feeling of urgency is driving us to cross the finish line, to close those major projects before the calendar flips. We have to deliver our annual targets.
Absolutely. We're hitting this maximum intensity right when the structural, the emotional, and the social systems around us are demanding the exact opposite. Right alongside that drive, you have this, irresistible pull of the festive season, mandatory office celebrations that just eat into precious work time, the logistical nightmare of travel and family commitments, and just the sheer nervous excitement that distracts from the task list.
Exactly. So we have a massive internal conflict. How does anyone maintain the necessary focus to wrap up a demanding year successfully without collapsing into complete exhaustion, that classic year-end burnout, and completely derailing the strategic goals they need to hit the ground running with in January?
So our mission today is, well, it's ambitious. We are analyzing the playbook for surviving and maybe even thriving during this really intense period. We're looking at strategies across the entire spectrum.
Right. From the micro level, the personal planning hacks, you can literally start using tomorrow morning, all the way up to the systemic macro level. We're examining these intense organizational pressures like the financial year-end close, and maybe most importantly, tackling the deep, ongoing, and sometimes politically charged debate around systemic stress and burnout.
We want to give you the tactical knowledge to manage your day and the strategic context to understand why your day is structured the way it is. Okay, let's unpack this. Let's start at that foundational level, right? Yeah. Right in the trenches with the individual worker who feels that creeping productivity slump as the scent of holiday nostalgia starts to hit. How do people manage that personal battle to stay present and on task when their brain is already, picturing the January break?
Well, the feeling you describe that holidays automatically lead to a slump, that's real. It's because our mental energy isn't infinite. It is constantly being diverted by planning for gifts, coordinating logistics, managing all that social debt. So the most successful strategies we see professionals adopting during this time, they really focus on two things: forcing absolute clarity and integrating life into the work schedule, not trying to cram work around life.
I found a surprising insight in the material we reviewed, this almost charming throwback to low-tech, high-conviction planning. We have people, often highly technical professionals, advocating so strongly for the old, faithful pen and paper.
It seems counterintuitive, right, in a fully digital world. But it's an incredibly popular method, and there's a psychological reason for it. For setting those big monthly goals, especially for preventing critical tasks from being automatically just, deferred to January 2nd, there's a conviction that comes from the physical act of writing it down.
Right, it's tangible.
It is. It moves the goal from being a mutable document on a screen to a physical commitment sitting on your desk. It's the low-tech, high-commitment approach that just bypasses all that digital distraction.
And the beauty of physical planning is that it often forces that next critical step, which is the morning ritual.
Precisely. Dedicating time immediately after waking up, before the first email even hits your inbox, to plan out the day ahead. It gives you a proactive stance. You are setting the agenda rather than allowing the inbox or, the urgent pings to set the agenda for you. This is the difference between simply reacting to the world and intentionally shaping your schedule.
And the really crucial part of that daily planning isn't just scheduling the work tasks, is it? It's that radical integration of the non-work stuff. We saw examples where people are explicitly scheduling commitments like gift shopping or family dinner prep.
Even 2 hours for movies.
Right. Directly into their calendars, treating them with the same sanctity as a client meeting.
That integration is absolutely vital. This is where most people fail. They mentally categorize holiday tasks as low priority or optional, and then when they inevitably encroach on work time, it just generates guilt and stress. Planning ahead, even knowing full well that things might shift, it drastically increases your overall productivity because you are making conscious, non-emotional decisions about where your finite time and attention will be spent. You account for the excitement and you account for the nervousness rather than letting those variables hijack your focus and create decision fatigue.
And speaking of tools, the source material gave us a really clear contrast in tech philosophies. On one side, you have these powerful, sophisticated, all-in-one time-blocking apps. But then you see users quickly gravitating toward much, much simpler alternatives.
We see a pattern emerge here, definitely. Many of the newer, sophisticated tools, often built around AI or highly granular time-blocking features, we could mention tools like AkiFlow or Motion, they get dismissed by high-pressure users. The feedback is that they feel too bloated or just overly complex for what they truly need in the moment.
Too many bells and whistles.
Exactly. These tools have steep learning curves and just too many features.
So they prefer the simplicity of an alternative like Aftertone, or maybe just a shared Google Doc or a physical whiteboard?
Yes. The core insight is that when structural stress is high and your mental capacity is strained by all these external pressures, people instinctively reduce their cognitive load. They opt for the simplest, most intuitive tool to achieve their main goal, which is usually just time blocking and maintaining external visibility. The complexity of a new system at year end is the ultimate enemy of adherence. You won't stick with a tool you have to spend 2 hours learning when you're already drowning.
And then we hit this counterintuitive nugget of wisdom, the anti-productivity hack that I find fascinating. It's deliberately setting the bar lower. Now, I can imagine a listener pushing back immediately, saying, wait, is this just a sophisticated way of encouraging slacking off or breeding mediocrity?
That's a fair challenge, but the research suggests the opposite is true. It's a brilliant psychological mechanism designed for periods of volatility. When the environment is volatile, meaning you have unexpected family obligations, long weekends, sick kids, all those administrative year-end pressure-setting outrageously ambitious goals guarantees immediate failure, and that leads to feelings of guilt and inadequacy.
So the goal isn't laziness, it's more like damage control for our self-image.
Exactly. By deliberately lowering the bar, for instance, committing to 3 critical tasks instead of 10, you reduce that intense, self-imposed pressure. This shift enables you to consistently achieve smaller, more realistic wins. And those achievable wins, they generate positive momentum, feelings of competence, and confidence. So this system, paradoxically, keeps the overall productivity engine running better than aiming too high and constantly falling short. It successfully transforms December from a month of inevitable, guilt-ridden failure into one of manageable, small successes that build toward January. It's all about sustainable pace over an unsustainable sprint.
That distinction, sustainable pace versus unsustainable sprint, that is so essential for mental health. So we've covered how to survive the immediate month by simplifying our tools and our expectations. But the year end isn't just about survival. For many professionals, that natural slowdown, the quiet days between Christmas and New Year's, it's the ideal window for high-value strategic work. We need to shift focus from just surviving the current month to leveraging that downtime for deep reflection and strategic growth. Here's where it gets really interesting.
This quiet time, when the urgent tasks have finally slowed down, it is truly golden. It allows you to step off the hamster wheel of daily operations. It's time you can dedicate to working on your life and career, not just in it. And the key is structured reflection. The insights we reviewed provide a fantastic, organized methodology, and it's often broken down into 4 essential pillars.
Let's break down those 4 pillars because structured reflection is what separates, just leafing through a calendar from actually extracting functional, usable lessons for the future. What's the first pillar that guides this review?
The first pillar focuses purely on successes. You need to explicitly identify what you managed well this year. And this is more than just logging big victories like closing a major deal. It's also about noting which projects or tasks you genuinely enjoyed and what specific outcomes gave you a strong sense of personal pride. Did you master a new presentation skill? Did you finally automate that tedious weekly report? This process actively reinforces positive behavior, it anchors your motivation, and it helps you identify the sources of intrinsic joy in your work for the coming year.
That sounds like a really powerful way to start. The second pillar then confronts the inevitable negative side of the ledger, challenges. This is where we analyze what didn't go according to plan, and I assume the why is the critical component here.
Absolutely. It requires ruthless, honest introspection, free of self-blame. You have to ask, why did that project stall? Was it truly a failure of effort, or was there a systemic gap? Were there recurring problems, for instance, endless delays waiting for approvals from someone? Was the core issue a lack of a certain resource or a specific skill set, maybe a lack of proficiency in a required software?
So what you're doing, you're building a diagnostic report for yourself.
Precisely. By cataloging those recurring issues, those challenges that derailed you, you create a preparedness checklist for the future. You identify the specific resources or abilities you need to acquire to ensure you don't repeat the same mistakes. If you struggled with the data analysis, well, you know you need that specific training in Q1.
Moving to the third pillar, we look inward at personal growth. This seems to bridge the professional and the, Well, the existential. What kind of self-discoveries are we aiming for here?
This is all about intentional self-development and skill refinement. You have to ask, what profound things did I learn about myself? My most effective habits, my psychological triggers for stress, or maybe my preferred style of working? Did I discover I'm a morning person or a night owl? Which skills did I actively improve this year, and where's their untapped potential that needs focused development next year? This pillar directly feeds into your future learning agenda. It might provide the specific impetus to finally pursue that course on Coursera or Udemy that you keep putting off.
And the final pillar, one that the modern high-pressure economy has made increasingly critical: balance.
This is the cold, hard evaluation of your true work-life balance satisfaction. Did I reserve enough time for family, for friends, or simply for genuine rest and self-care? It challenges the toxic assumption that sacrificing personal time is somehow necessary for professional success. If your balance satisfaction is low, that deficit becomes a strategic problem you must actively solve in the coming year, just like you would solve a business challenge. It requires a tangible action plan.
And once that deep four-pillar reflection is complete, the sources lead right into the planning for next year. Because you have to translate those lessons into a functional roadmap, otherwise the reflection is just, nostalgia.
Correct. The core starting point is setting goals, and the most effective framework for translation is the internationally recognized SMART framework. Your objectives must be specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and timed. This framework removes all the ambiguity.
Right, so instead of saying, I want to significantly grow my business's social media presence, use a concrete example that meets all criteria. Something like, I want to win 5 new customers through organic leads generated from LinkedIn content by the end of March. That's specific, it's measurable, and it's timed.
Precisely. And once the SMART goals are defined, you need to visualize them. You need to create the actionable roadmap. And whether you utilize a high-powered, feature-rich collaboration tool like Notion, Asana, ClickUp, or Trello, or whether you just stick to a simple planning notebook, the goal is to visualize those quarterly or monthly plans in a way that shows the dependencies. This turns abstract desires into concrete, scheduled timelines that the team or the individual can actually follow.
And the key mechanism to protect that roadmap from the tyranny of daily distraction has to be time blocking.
Time blocking is not optional. It is absolutely essential for protecting strategic work. It means dedicating specific, protected calendar slots for those important, high-value projects you identify during the planning phase. If you don't schedule the important work, the work that will truly move the needle next year, the urgent, low-value tasks like responding to minor emails or attending unnecessary meetings will inevitably displace it. This structured approach ensures you start the new year with momentum, defending your time for that deep work.
And let's not forget that extra holistic tip we saw, the integration of personal goals into this professional roadmap. It sounds simple, but it's so critical for holistic planning and stress mitigation.
It is the missing piece for so many high achievers. If you only plan professional goals, your personal life remains entirely reactive. It's subject to whatever residual time is left over, which is usually, well, none. Actively planning for family time, scheduling new hobbies, or prioritizing exercise alongside your client deadlines ensures that the pursuit of professional excellence doesn't destroy your inner life. Planning for personal well-being is a preemptive stress reducer for the upcoming year, baked right into the structure. Speaking of preparation for the upcoming year, that downtime around year-end, especially that week between the holidays, is perfectly positioned as an investment period. It's really the ideal time to focus on professional development and skill acquisition, transforming what could be passive holiday time into active, strategic growth.
I find this reframing of downtime so valuable. It's not a void that needs to be filled with scrolling. It's dedicated strategic time. And we can divide this structured learning into 3 main avenues: foundational literature, the essential tools we test, and the structured courses we take.
Starting with literature, yes. We see specific titles mentioned that have become really foundational for modern professionals, particularly those focused on personal efficiency and concentration. Books like James Clear's Atomic Habits, for example, focus on the compounding power of small, consistent improvements. It emphasizes that real change comes from systems, not just goals. Similarly, Cal Newport's Deep Work, or as it's known in some European contexts, Konzentriert Arbeiten, that provides the philosophical and tactical underpinnings for sustained, distraction-free effort, which is the necessary prerequisite for any high-value output. These books provide the intellectual roadmap.
The second avenue is purely technical and immediate testing new software. This is the prime opportunity to experiment with tools that could, revolutionize a business process, whether it's specialized software for project management, sophisticated graphic design applications, or something more bleeding edge?
And right now, the most crucial category to focus on, and this reflects where major organizations are prioritizing their investment, is AI-based tools for content creation and business support. We are seeing structured learning programs already reflecting this priority for the future of work. Companies recognize that if their workforce isn't proficient in utilizing intelligent systems by the middle of next year, they will fall behind very, very quickly in both efficiency and innovation. It's no longer optional.
Let's drill down on the specific training content businesses are prioritizing in this area, because this tells you exactly where business priorities lie for 2025. It has to start with establishing a baseline of understanding, right?
Yes. The initial focus for any corporate upskilling must be the introduction to modern AI. This training defines what artificial intelligence is today, moving beyond the science fiction to practical reality, and it explains its recent rapid development trajectory, helping employees grasp its tangible influence on the business world. This builds the necessary conceptual framework so that employees aren't approaching the tools with, fear or confusion.
And then we move straight into the practical application, making it real for the average office worker. Practical AI tools in the office.
This training is very task-oriented. It focuses on recognizing and utilizing specific intelligent assistants and automated processes that exist today. It's about showing employees which tools are most current and future-facing, and critically, how they can be used day-to-day to support operations and realize immediate productivity gains. This could involve using AI to draft complex emails, summarize long meeting notes, analyze large data sets for patterns, or even generate initial visual concepts. The goal is augmentation, not replacement.
But with any technology that handles sensitive corporate data, especially one that learns and processes language, there has to be a robust focus on security and compliance. That's often an afterthought in the race for efficiency.
Absolutely essential. This often requires its own dedicated training module, data security, and efficient AI use. The training must cover the critical aspects of secure and efficient AI utilization within the company structure. This means understanding data governance, recognizing the risks of feeding proprietary information into public models, and managing compliance. It should include practical case studies, allowing participants to try out various AI applications in realistic office scenarios while ensuring data integrity is maintained and avoiding costly errors like data leakage.
And that strategic focus on core skills ties right into the third major avenue of professional development, which is structured education via online courses.
Exactly. Platforms like Udemy, Coursera, or LinkedIn Learning are crucial for formal, structured upskilling. The demand is clearly centered around these high-demand, future-proof areas like advanced design principles, digital marketing strategies, and foundational programming skills. The year-end break provides the necessary mental space to tackle these complex, modular courses that require sustained concentration. It sets you up with advanced competencies before the inevitable Q1 rush even begins. It's an active, proactive investment that yields immediate dividends in your confidence and capability.
We've established the individual battle plan and the strategic investment in skills.
Yeah.
Now we need to zoom out from the individual's desk to the massive corporate machine, where the pressure isn't just about managing one's own time, it's about navigating these mandatory, stressful organizational processes.
Yeah.
We were talking about the financial year-end grind, a process that is just a classic source of systemic year-end stress.
This is an administrative hurdle that companies of every size, operating across different jurisdictions, face globally. The accounting and finance teams, in particular, they often bear the brunt of it. They face enormous pressure, frequently logging long hours and adhering to tight, non-negotiable deadlines, while the rest of the organization is often winding down or prepping for a soft January start.
And I'm curious, why is the year-end close such an unmovable mandatory hurdle? Why does it generate so much structural stress every single year?
Fundamentally, it's a non-negotiable regulatory requirement. Businesses must review, verify, and ultimately close the books to confirm the accuracy of their annual financial statements. It is the legal process that demonstrates the financial performance over the preceding 12 months and provides necessary transparency for regulators, for shareholders, the public, and internal decision makers. And critically, post-close, companies have to open their accounts to external auditors who rigorously verify this accuracy. The stress comes from this toxic combination of legal compliance, extreme reliance on timely but often delayed input from other departments or third parties, and the absolutely unforgiving nature of regulatory deadlines.
For our listeners who may not be in finance, can you walk us through the core administrative tasks that define this stressful period? What are the key tasks that absorb all that time?
Certainly. There are several key tasks that have to be completed meticulously. First and foremost is the overall reviewing of annual financial statements, the profit and loss, balance sheet, and cash flow statements. Second, the detailed auditing of accounts receivable and payable. To use accessible terms, accounts receivable means checking who owes us money, and accounts payable is making sure we know exactly who we owe. And that often requires communication with external vendors.
So they are confirming outstanding debts and obligations, making sure those numbers are verifiable. What else?
Third is the incredibly complex process of reconciling transactions. This ensures all the subledgers and individual accounts match up precisely with the general ledger. It's the process of finding that proverbial needle in the haystack if there's a difference of even a few dollars.
And inevitably, while they're reconciling, they are also identifying discrepancies and working frantically to resolve them before the deadline.
Correct. And that leads directly to the next 2 points. Fulfilling all financial reporting requirements necessary for regulators, which often require specific formatting and data presentation. And finally, preparing all the data meticulously for the rigorous external audits. If the data isn't prepared to the auditor's satisfaction, the entire process stalls. That increases the pressure exponentially and can potentially lead to compliance issues.
Since this is an unavoidable, mandatory part of doing business, the focus has to shift to systemic solutions to mitigate the chronic stress. We uncovered 5 critical pro tips for achieving a significantly less stressful financial close. Where does the optimization process actually begin if you're a CFO?
It begins with foresight and organizational discipline, specifically planning months ahead. Given the inherent complexity, the numerous interdepartmental dependencies, and the need for third-party input, you simply cannot wait until December to start. For larger complex organizations, preparations should ideally begin as early as March, or even earlier.
Wow, March. That seems radically early for a December deadline. What do they do in 9 months out?
They're establishing the timeline, they're confirming staff holidays early to manage resource allocation, proactively contacting external stakeholders for timely input like confirming external valuation reports or vendor agreements, and tackling early start tasks. This lead time is crucial for mitigating unexpected obstacles. A key piece of data missing or a key staff member on vacation that would otherwise derail the tight timeline in December. Early planning is the ultimate proactive stress defense.
What's the next systemic step after establishing that robust, multi-month plan?
It's optimizing the checklist. An effective year-end checklist is not just a static to-do list. It must be a living, dynamic workflow tracker that prioritizes visibility and functionality. CFOs need high-level dashboard visibility, often displayed through a tool that uses a Gantt chart or a Kanban board so they can track overall progress and quickly spot potential delays or bottlenecks across different departments.
And I imagine the team members themselves need a different view of that same list.
Exactly. Simultaneously, every team member has to clearly understand their individual responsibilities, their colleagues' dependencies, meaning who is waiting on their work, and the flow of the tasks. This optimization prevents silos, it clarifies accountability, and it ensures that when a delay occurs, the impact is immediately visible to everyone who depends on that output.
I know a huge silent headache in high-pressure financial environments is knowledge silos and version control issues, the dreaded V5 final, VLE final docs. How do organizations combat that kind of administrative chaos?
By mandating and enforcing centralized storage. Accounting teams work with countless documents, contracts, and data sources that must be instantly accessible and auditable. If this information is scattered across individual hard drives, separate cloud folders, or old email attachments, what we call shadow IT, it creates knowledge silos. Team members can't access critical documents or, far worse, they end up working on different, outdated file versions. Centralizing the storage creates a single, immutable source of truth for all documents, promoting stringent version control and ensuring quick, reliable accessibility even when the pressure is highest. This streamlines the external audit process considerably.
In moving beyond document storage, communication often falls apart under pressure, especially with hybrid teams or global organizations working across different time zones. Waiting for an email response can destroy a timeline.
That's why the fourth tip is to radically modernize communication. Traditional email and asynchronous phone threads become notoriously unreliable during a crunch period. Crucial information gets buried, delays mount while waiting for responses. CFOs need to adopt integrated solutions, utilizing instant messaging capabilities and real-time interaction over live documents. These solutions should be versatile and, ideally, allow integration options. Think Slack channels integrated with Google Drive documents, and include options for external parties like auditors to gain necessary read-only access quickly. Real-time interaction cuts the lag that kills tight deadlines.
And finally, the efficiency gain every accountant dreams of, tackling the sheer volume of manual work. I know automation is key here, but let's talk specifically about the pain point it relieves.
That brings us to automating reconciliation. This task is consistently cited as the most time-consuming, tedious, and soul-crushing part of the close process. If it's performed manually, employees are forced to review and cross-reference thousands, sometimes hundreds of thousands, of line items of potentially unformatted data across multiple spreadsheets. This process requires immense manual complexity, it induces incredible boredom, and critically, it leads to a high likelihood of human error during a critical phase when fatigue is setting in.
So this isn't just about saving time, it's about mitigating the human factor when people are under stress.
Absolutely. Automation, using specialized close management software, significantly reduces this manual burden. It deploys smart matching algorithms to handle the majority of transaction comparisons, freeing up accounting teams to focus only on exceptions and higher value analytical work rather than repetitive checks. It enhances performance by mitigating the risk of human fatigue and error, which, when you're reporting to regulators, is essentially a professional safety issue. This is a crucial structural improvement that directly reduces the individual's stress load. We have spent a lot of time discussing personal hacks and corporate efficiencies, but the stress that automation relieves. It leads us directly to the macro-level debate that often sits beneath the surface of the year-end grind. Is productivity stress caused primarily by individual shortcomings, or is it a systemic issue rooted in poor work design?
This is the definitive crux of the modern work discussion, especially when we talk about the epidemic of burnout. And the data we have is incredibly stark, suggesting the problem is far beyond the individual's ability to just manage time better.
Indeed. Data collected from large representative surveys of employees, such as the DGB index in Germany, reveals the enormous extent of this work intensification. The finding is alarming. 63% of employees report that for years now, they have had to achieve more in the same amount of time. This statistic points clearly to widespread issues of what is termed work hustle, or Arbeitsschutz, and a complete blurring of boundaries, or Entgrenzung. This strongly suggests that the problem isn't just about individual time management, it's profoundly structural.
And this feeds directly into the conflict at the heart of the burnout debate. We see two distinct, opposing views on how to tackle this rising tide of psychological illness. Let's look first at the structural view, which is often championed by labor organizations and unions. What is their core thesis?
The structural view asserts that the primary stress factor, and therefore the key lever for prevention, lies squarely in the conditions of work. Proponents argue that well-designed working conditions are not just a form of burnout prevention, but the best, and ultimately the only, truly effective form of prevention. They emphasize that the feeling of being rushed, of being under intense, sustained stress, is not merely a subjective complaint that can be ignored. They argue it is a hard fact, as scientifically real as the result of a blood pressure measurement or the presence of a hazardous substance in the air.
And how do they recommend gathering this factual data about psychosocial risk, since you can't exactly measure it with a thermometer?
They argue that employee surveys are uniquely essential and suited for the early detection of these psychosocial risks. Who better than the employees themselves to report on situations like having to consistently work while sick or having to resort to taking medication just to meet the demands of the job? They believe that reducing the influence of poor working conditions, which contributes significantly to rising psychological illnesses, is a professional, ethical, and necessary objective for management.
Now let's look impartially at the contrasting viewpoint. The individual view, which is often voiced by employer associations or business leaders. What is their core argument about the root causes of stress, and specifically their critique of these employee surveys?
This perspective suggests a more complex causality. They argue that the causes of stress currently discussed under the title burnout lie less overwhelmingly in the working environment and more often in the private life of the employee, or that they stem from individual dispositions, meaning a person's inherent capacity to handle pressure.
So they shift the emphasis from the system to the person.
Exactly. Some employer representatives go so far as to call the issue a productivity risk from the psyche, rather than fully acknowledging it as a productivity risk from poor working conditions. They see it as a medical issue related to individual capacity, not as a design flaw in the workplace.
And specifically regarding the large representative employee surveys that the unions champion, they just dismiss the findings entirely.
Yes, certain representatives have publicly stated that these large-scale employee surveys, even those with robust methodology, are methodologically unsuitable for providing secured information on the actual spread of stress. The reason being that they rely too heavily on subjective statements and feelings. They raise concerns about validity and selection bias, arguing it is difficult to isolate whether the self-reported stress is primarily job-related or if it's stemming from private, financial, family, or health issues. This view tends to shift the primary responsibility for stress management entirely away from organizational redesign and onto the individual's coping mechanisms.
That's a powerful inherent conflict. So what's the necessary conclusion we can draw when looking at these contrasting approaches to prevention, particularly given that overwhelming 63% statistic?
Well, if we accept the objective that work should not structurally make people sick, then effective prevention must involve the actors whose jurisdiction lies in the working world, the employers and labor representatives. While nobody would deny that private factors contribute to stress, downplaying the structural factors that clearly indicate working conditions are a primary, measurable stressor, especially that perpetual pressure to do more with less time. To downplay that would be professionally negligent and counterproductive to prevention efforts. The primary focus must remain on tackling and redesigning work where the intensity and boundary blurring are most acutely happening.
That structural reality provides such essential context for the individual struggle. So, given that many of us are operating in systems defined by this pressure to do more with less time, what proactive steps can organizations take to build internal strength and help employees manage the inevitable stress? It seems there's a massive corporate shift toward dedicated wellness and resilience training to support the individual where the system might be failing.
Absolutely. The focus is moving from just managing tasks to actively managing the internal capacity of the people who are performing those tasks. Companies are investing heavily in training programs centered on resilience, stress management, and psychosomatic health. The goal is to equip employees with practical, science-backed tools to develop inner strength and deal with high demands more effectively, especially when the structural pressures are non-negotiable, like that financial close.
Let's detail the key pillars of what these programs define as healthy work. It sounds like it starts not with the individual, but with the environment they operate in.
Correct. The first area is fostering a healthy team culture. This is about promoting positive collaboration, psychological safety, and a genuinely supportive environment where people feel comfortable raising concerns without fear of reprisal. Second is specialized stress management, which teaches employees how to effectively avoid unnecessary stress through prioritization and, crucially, how to safely handle the unavoidable high-pressure phases with coping mechanisms.
And then there's the focus on the individual boundary, which is often the first thing to collapse during the year-end hustle.
Yes, the third pillar centers on the art of self-care and boundary setting. This is practical training. The programs aim to help employees stay in balance, recognize their own physiological and psychological limits, and learn how to enforce them proactively. This might include implementing silent hours on calendars, defining specific non-work hours, or developing standard language for pushing back gently on non-essential requests.
And finally, the fourth pillar focuses on building that inner architecture of durability.
That is resilience and mindfulness. This provides techniques to build inner strength and resistance to strain, the ability to bounce back from setbacks. Mindfulness practices, in particular, increase awareness in the present moment, which helps employees break that ruminative cycle of anxiety about future demands or past mistakes. These are the tools designed to be used when the structural stress is at its highest.
That makes sense for the general workforce, but what about the leadership? How does healthy leadership training change the way managers operate, since they are often the ones transmitting the structural pressure down the chain?
Leadership training is crucial because managers are the direct point of contact for employee stress. This training has several specific aims. First, strengthening team resilience, ensuring the leader knows how to spot distress and support employees effectively when they face difficult situations. Second, teaching methods for successful, constructive conflict resolution, emphasizing clarity and concrete action rather than passive-aggressive avoidance, which poisons team culture.
And I imagine the rise of the hybrid environment has made managing human health infinitely more complex.
It has created new challenges. A specific training module addresses healthy leadership at a distance, examining what supportive management looks like when you can't see the employee's body language or stress signals in person. It asks whether health-oriented leadership from afar is a key to success or a mission impossible, and it provides the tools to make it successful. Additionally, the training focuses on core leadership instruments like providing feedback constructively, learning to foster both extrinsic versus intrinsic motivation within the team, and using a systemic view to solve conflicts and change negative, self-reinforcing patterns. This elevates management from merely delegating tasks to truly managing human potential and organizational health.
Before we wrap up, let's connect all this back to the individual in a deep, personal way, especially during the darker, quieter time of year when reflection is so key. We saw a powerful concept mentioned in the material identifying your inner compass.
Yes. Ultimately, effective stress management and the pursuit of a fulfilled life connect back to your foundational personal values. The metaphor suggests that our values, identifying core elements like love, honesty, family, adventure, a sense of purpose, freedom, they act as our compass in dark nights. During intense periods of external pressure, it's easy to make choices that contradict those values, which leads to stress and dissatisfaction. When you take the time to consciously align your actions, your career choices, and your plans with these inner lights, your life automatically becomes more integrated and fulfilling, and that makes you inherently more resilient against external pressures, whether they are organizational or personal.
What an incredible deep dive into the year-end paradox. We began by recognizing that December is this strange, high-intensity convergence of frantic administrative wrap-up, the compliance work must get done, and that deep pull towards rest and personal reflection.
And we learned that successfully navigating this period means two things. Individually, you must simplify your tools, strategically lower the bar for daily wins, and leverage the quiet days for deep, structured reflection across your successes, challenges, growth, and balance. Systemically, organizations must automate away administrative burdens, especially in finance, and recognize that the rising tide of stress is a structural design problem caused by chronic intensification, not just an individual psychological fault.
That is the ultimate tension here. The ability to execute on the year-end checklist is enhanced by simplification and automation, but the ability to endure the year-end stress is ultimately protected by structural working conditions and supportive leadership. The ultimate focus needs to be on creating environments where work does not structurally make people sick.
You now have the blueprints for the next phase of work in life. A detailed plan for reflection, skill building in high-demand areas like AI, and efficiency optimization for major processes. But given that the data shows 63% of workers feel perpetual pressure to do more in the same time, if you cannot change the structural intensification of your work, what single protective boundary, physical, emotional, or technological, will you establish in the new year to protect your own psychosomatic health? Think about that one thing, set it, and defend it fiercely. That's your next mission.
Until the next deep dive, stay informed and stay resilient.